Welcome to our training session on domestic violence prevention. Training objectives. Understand the definition and various types of domestic violence. Recognize the signs and symptoms of different forms of abuse, including physical, emotional, psychological, financial, and sexual abuse. Identify the impact of domestic violence on individuals and workplaces. Explore best practices for supervisors and coworkers in supporting victims. Learn about legal protections for victims, including Connecticut-specific laws and federal mandates. Understand mandatory reporting requirements and available resources for victims. Foster a supportive workplace culture that prioritizes safety, confidentiality, and non-retaliation. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence is a systematic pattern of power and control exerted by one partner over another in an intimate relationship. This pattern includes behaviors designed to intimidate, manipulate, isolate, and harm the victim, often leading to long-term trauma and dependency. It affects individuals from all walks of life, regardless of age, gender, race, ethnicity, or economic background. Domestic violence is not limited to physical violence. It can also manifest through emotional, psychological, financial, and sexual abuse. The presence of domestic violence often leads to profound psychological trauma, including depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Types of domestic violence. Physical abuse involves any use of physical force with the intent to cause harm, such as hitting, slapping, choking, and using weapons. It can lead to visible injuries, but may also involve threats of physical violence. Emotional abuse includes behaviors that undermine the victim's self-worth, such as constant criticism, insults, humiliation, and isolation from friends and family. Psychological abuse consists of tactics designed to instill fear, confusion, and self-doubt, such as gaslighting, threats, and controlling behaviors that undermine a victim's sense of reality. Financial abuse occurs when the abuser controls the victim's financial resources, prevents access to money, sabotages employment, or accrues debt in the victim's name. Sexual abuse involves coercion, forced sexual acts, non-consensual sexual contact, and reproductive control. Sexual abuse often includes the use of force or intimidation. Recognizing signs of physical abuse. Victims may present with unexplained bruises, burns, or fractures that often have vague or inconsistent explanations. Frequent medical visits for injuries paired with a reluctance to explain the cause can be a red flag. Wearing long sleeves, sunglasses, or scarves to conceal injuries even in inappropriate weather conditions. Behavioral indicators can include fear of being touched, flinching at sudden movements, or avoiding physical contact altogether. Recognizing signs of emotional and psychological abuse. Victims may exhibit signs of withdrawal, low self-esteem, and fearfulness, particularly when their partner is mentioned. Sudden changes in mood, personality, or social behavior, such as avoiding previously enjoyed activities and isolating from support networks. Indicators may include expressions of helplessness, persistent anxiety, or excessive apologizing. Recognizing signs of financial abuse. Victims may lack access to personal financial resources, have limited control over household income, or be prevented from working. Abrupt changes in financial stability, such as unexplained debt or financial hardship despite a stable income, may suggest financial abuse. The victim might be overly concerned about financial issues and overly dependent on their partner for basic needs. Recognizing signs of sexual abuse. Victims may present with unexplained physical trauma in private areas, discomfort with physical activity, and unexplained gynecological issues. Behavioral changes such as avoidance of intimacy, fear of being alone with certain individuals, or extreme sensitivity to touch. Victims may also exhibit signs of emotional withdrawal, shame, and reluctance to discuss personal relationships. How domestic violence impacts the workplace. Emotional trauma and stress can significantly reduce productivity, concentration, and job performance. Victims may frequently miss work or arrive late due to controlling behaviors or injuries. Strained relationships with colleagues. Conflicts and declining morale can result from unaddressed issues related to domestic violence. In severe cases, domestic violence can lead to security concerns within the workplace, putting both the victim and coworkers at risk. Why employers should address domestic violence. Employers have a moral and ethical responsibility to support employee well-being and create a safe, respectful workplace. Federal laws, such as the Occupational Safety and Health Act, OSHA, require maintaining a safe working environment free from hazards, including domestic violence spillover. Failing to address domestic violence can lead to increased absenteeism, reduced productivity, and higher turnover rates, impacting the organization's overall performance. Best practices in the workplace. Offer support resources and encourage affected employees to seek professional help. Play a vital role by being observant and supportive. Listen without judgment and avoid offering unsolicited advice. Provide emotional support by being a compassionate listener and validating the victim's feelings. Encourage the victim to seek professional help and refer them to available resources. Respect the victim's privacy and avoid sharing information without their consent. Responding to a disclosure. Remain calm and supportive when an employee discloses abuse, acknowledging their bravery in coming forward. Validate their experiences without questioning or minimizing their concerns. Provide resources and support options while maintaining confidentiality. Work with HR to ensure the employee's safety and any necessary accommodations in the workplace. Maintaining confidentiality. Maintaining strict confidentiality is essential when handling disclosures of domestic violence. Share information only with those directly involved in the support process and within legal guidelines. Ensure that any documentation related to the disclosure is securely stored and only accessible to authorized personnel. Safety planning for employees. Safety planning involves working with the employee to create a personalized strategy to protect their safety at work and home. This may include adjusting work hours, providing a secure parking space, and establishing emergency contacts. Consider offering flexible work arrangements or remote work options to ensure the employee feels safe. Legal protections for victims in the workplace. Federal laws such as the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, provide job-protected leave for victims needing medical care or counseling. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, can also apply when a victim's trauma results in a qualifying condition. Connecticut laws offer protections such as restraining orders and employment discrimination safeguards for victims. Connecticut laws on domestic violence. Connecticut has robust legal protections for victims, including restraining orders, family violence protective orders, and employment accommodations. Employers are required to provide reasonable accommodations to ensure the safety and well-being of affected employees. Additional state laws protect employees from retaliation for seeking help or taking time off for court-related matters. Mandatory reporting in Connecticut. Certain professionals, including healthcare workers, have a legal obligation to report suspected domestic violence cases. Mandatory reporting aims to ensure the safety of vulnerable individuals while balancing privacy rights. Employers should provide clear guidelines on when and how to report suspected abuse. Resources for victims in Connecticut. The Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence, CADV, provides resources such as shelters, counseling, and legal aid. Safe Connect, operated by CADV, offers 24/7 support, crisis intervention, and referrals to local services for victims of domestic violence. The Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, CHRO, enforces state anti-discrimination laws and provides resources for those facing workplace discrimination linked to domestic violence. CADV member organizations across the state provide direct services including shelter, safety planning, and legal advocacy for victims. National hotlines and local organizations offer confidential support and immediate assistance. Encourage the use of employee assistance programs, EAP, where available. Myths and facts about domestic violence. Myth: domestic violence only involves physical abuse. Fact: emotional, financial, and psychological abuse are equally damaging. Myth: victims can easily leave. Fact: leaving an abusive relationship is complex due to fear, financial dependency, and emotional ties. Myth: it only affects women. Fact: domestic violence can affect people of all genders and backgrounds. Impact of domestic violence on children. Children who witness domestic violence may experience emotional trauma, anxiety, and behavioral issues. Exposure can affect their ability to form healthy relationships later in life. Early intervention, counseling, and supportive environments can mitigate long-term effects. Role of community partnerships. Partnering with local shelters, advocacy groups, and crisis centers enhances workplace support for victims. Building relationships with community health services and legal aid providers can provide comprehensive support. Conclusion and key takeaways. Domestic violence is a pervasive issue that can significantly impact workplaces. Knowledge, awareness, and proactive measures can prevent harm and promote well-being. Thank you for watching the Domestic Violence Prevention module. Please answer the questions for this training before moving on to the next training module.